Let me tell you something that can change your life, if you truly hear it, and let it sink into your spirit. You are not responsible for how other people feel. You are responsible for how you show up in the world, how you speak your truth, how you act with integrity. But you are not responsible for managing the emotional reactions of others. So many of us were raised believing that love means sacrifice, that kindness means silence, and that being good means making sure everyone around us is comfortable, even when we are not. We learned early on to read the room, to shrink ourselves, to soften our words, to swallow our needs so no one else would feel upset, disappointed, or angry. And over time, we began to confuse responsibility with control. Here is the truth: you can be kind and still disappoint people. You can be honest and still trigger someone's pain. You can set a boundary and still be misunderstood. And none of that makes you wrong. Every person carries their own history, their own wounds, their own expectations. When someone reacts strongly to your choices, it is often touching something unresolved inside them. That reaction belongs to them. It is not your job to fix it, absorb it, or reshape yourself to prevent it. You are allowed to say no without explaining yourself for hours. You are allowed to choose yourself without feeling selfish. You are allowed to walk away from conversations that drain your spirit. Emotional maturity is understanding that love does not require self-abandonment. Let me be clear, compassion does not mean carrying someone else's emotional weight. Empathy does not mean neglecting your own well-being. You can care deeply and still draw a line. You can listen without agreeing. You can support without surrendering your peace. When you stop taking responsibility for everyone else's feelings, something powerful happens. You begin to breathe differently. You begin to hear your own voice again. You stop living in reaction mode and start living with intention. You realize that your purpose is not to be liked by everyone, but to be aligned with yourself. Some people will be uncomfortable when you change. Some will resist when you grow. Some will accuse you of being cold when you finally become clear. Let them. Growth often disrupts old dynamics, and that discomfort is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something new. The most loving thing you can do is to show up as your authentic self, because when you honor your truth, you give others permission to do the same. And those who truly belong in your life will adjust, not demand that you disappear. So remember this: you are responsible for your actions, your words, and your healing, but not for managing someone else's emotional world. Choose peace, choose clarity, choose yourself. One of the most important lessons you will ever learn in life is that setting emotional boundaries does not make you a bad person, it makes you a healthy one. For far too long, many of us have been conditioned to believe that protecting our emotional space is selfish, rude, or unkind. We were taught that love means always being available, always agreeing, always fixing, and always absorbing the emotional weight of others. But the truth is, constantly putting everyone else first while ignoring yourself is not love. It is self-neglect. Emotional boundaries are the invisible lines that define where you end and someone else begins. They are the rules that protect your energy, your mental health, and your sense of self. When you lack these boundaries, you may find yourself feeling drained, resentful, overwhelmed, or emotionally exhausted, not because you are weak, but because you are carrying burdens that were never meant to be yours. Guilt often shows up the moment you try to set a boundary. You say no, and immediately your mind starts racing, questioning whether you were too harsh, too distant, or too selfish. You replay the conversation again and again, trying to soften it in your head. But guilt does not mean you are wrong. It often means you are breaking a pattern that once kept you accepted but not fulfilled. Setting emotional boundaries means understanding that you can care about people without sacrificing your peace. It means recognizing that your feelings matter just as much as anyone else's. You are allowed to step back from conversations that hurt you, to limit access to people who drain you, and to protect your emotional space without offering endless explanations. Many people fear that boundaries will push others away. In reality, boundaries reveal who truly respects you. Those who value you will listen, adjust, and grow with you. Those who benefit from your lack of boundaries may resist, guilt trip, or accuse you of changing. That reaction is not proof that your boundary is wrong. It is proof that it was necessary. When you stop feeling guilty for setting emotional boundaries, one of the most freeing truths you can ever accept is that other people's reactions do not define your value, your character, or your worth. Yet so many of us live as if every raised eyebrow, every cold response, every disappointed tone is a verdict on who we are. We internalize reactions, we personalize emotions, and we carry judgments that were never meant to belong to us. From an early age, many people learn to measure their worth through approval. A smile means you are doing well. Silence means you failed. Anger means you did something wrong. Over time, this conditioning creates a deep fear of upsetting others. We begin to perform instead of live, to adjust instead of express, and to silence ourselves just to keep the peace. But peace that costs you your self-respect is not peace at all. Every person views the world through their own lens, shaped by their past experiences, beliefs, insecurities, and unresolved pain. When someone reacts strongly to your words or choices, they are often responding to their own internal story, not to your worth. Their disappointment may come from unmet expectations, their anger may come from fear of change, and their withdrawal may come from their own emotional limitations. It is important to understand this clearly. You can be kind and still be misunderstood. You can be honest and still be judged. You can do your best and still not be enough for someone else. That does not diminish your value. It simply means you are human, living in a world where everyone is processing life differently. When you attach your self-worth to other people's reactions, you hand them power over your emotional well-being. You begin to shrink when they are displeased, to doubt yourself when they are silent, and to question your decisions when they are unhappy. This is how self-trust erodes, slowly and quietly. Learning to separate your worth from external reactions is an act of self-respect. It requires you to check in with yourself instead of constantly looking outward for validation. Ask yourself, did I act with integrity? Did I speak my truth with respect? Did I honor my values? If the answer is yes, then you have done your part, regardless of how someone else feels about it. This does not mean becoming insensitive or dismissive of others' emotions. It means recognizing the difference between empathy and self-betrayal. You can acknowledge someone's feelings without assuming responsibility for them. You can listen without absorbing their judgment. You can care without collapsing your sense of self. Some people will never respond positively to your growth. Some will resist your boundaries. Some will feel uncomfortable when you stop over-explaining or over-giving. Their reaction is not a sign that you are failing. It is often a sign that you are evolving. Your worth is not fragile. It does not rise and fall with opinions, moods, or reactions. It is steady, inherent, and unchanged. When you truly understand this, you move through life with confidence instead of fear, clarity instead of doubt, and peace instead of constant emotional negotiation. You are not here to be approved by everyone. You are here to live truthfully, fully, and aligned with who you are. One of the hardest words for many people to say is the word no. Not because it is complicated, but because it challenges a lifetime of conditioning. We were taught that saying yes makes us kind, reliable, and lovable, while saying no makes us difficult, ungrateful, or selfish. Over time, this belief turns honesty into guilt and self-respect into something we feel we must apologize for. Saying no is not an act of rejection, it is an act of truth. It is you acknowledging your limits, your needs, and your priorities. When you say yes while your heart is saying no, you are not being generous, you are being dishonest, both with yourself and with the other person. That kind of yes eventually turns into resentment, exhaustion, and emotional burnout. Many people say yes because they fear losing approval. They fear being misunderstood. They fear conflict. But avoiding discomfort in the moment often creates deeper pain later. You overextend yourself, you feel taken for granted, and you begin to feel invisible in your own life. All because you did not allow yourself to be honest at the start. Saying no does not mean you do not care. It means you care enough to be real. It means you respect your energy and your time. It means you understand that your capacity is not unlimited. Every yes you give costs something: time, focus, emotional strength. When you say yes to everything, you end up saying no to yourself. There is also a powerful lesson in how people respond to your no. Those who respect you will listen. They may feel disappointed, but they will accept your honesty. Those who pressure, guilt trip, or manipulate you are often more attached to what you provide than to who you are. That reaction is not something you need to fix, it is something you need to notice. Honest no's create healthier relationships. They build trust, clarity, and mutual respect. When people know where you stand, there is less confusion and less emotional tension. You are no longer pretending, performing, or over-explaining. You are simply being true. Many people soften their no with long explanations, apologies, and justifications, hoping to make it more acceptable. But you do not need permission to honor your limits. A simple, respectful no is enough. You are not required to exhaust yourself just to prove your kindness. Learning to say no is a form of self-leadership. It teaches you to listen to your inner voice instead of external pressure. It reminds you that your needs are valid. It helps you build a life based on choice, rather than obligation. When you stop equating no with selfishness, you reclaim your honesty. You realize that true generosity comes from a full heart, not an empty one. And when you finally allow yourself to say no without guilt, you make space for a yes that truly matters. Saying no is not about pushing people away. It is about standing closer to yourself. Compassion is one of the most beautiful qualities a human being can possess. But when compassion turns into emotional burden, it begins to harm both the giver and the receiver. Many people believe that to loving means to feel everything others feel, to suffer when they suffer, and to carry their pain as if it were their own. But true compassion does not require self-destruction, and empathy does not demand that you lose yourself in someone else's struggles. Being compassionate means understanding, listening, and acknowledging another person's experience. It does not mean absorbing their pain into your own emotional body. When you carry someone else's pain for too long, you begin to confuse support with sacrifice. You start to feel responsible for fixing what you did not break, and healing wounds that are not yours to heal. Some people are natural caregivers. They feel deeply, they sense emotions quickly, and they want to help. But without healthy boundaries, this sensitivity can become overwhelming. You may find yourself emotionally drained after conversations, anxious about other people's problems, or unable to rest because someone else is hurting. This is not compassion at its best. It is compassion without limits. There is a difference between walking beside someone and carrying them. Walking beside someone means offering presence, encouragement, and understanding while allowing them to take responsibility for their own journey. Carrying them means taking on their emotional weight, making their problems your own, and neglecting your needs in the process. One leads to empowerment, the other leads to exhaustion. You can listen without fixing. You can care without controlling. You can offer support without sacrificing your peace. Compassion becomes healthier when you recognize that every person has their own inner strength and capacity to heal. By constantly carrying their pain, you may unintentionally deny them the opportunity to grow through their own experience. Many people feel guilty when they step back emotionally. They worry that creating distance means they are cold or uncaring. But emotional distance does not mean emotional absence. It means you are choosing balance. It means you are protecting your mental and emotional health so that your compassion remains genuine and sustainable. Healthy compassion includes self-compassion. If you ignore your own emotional needs while tending to everyone else's, resentment begins to grow quietly. You may feel unappreciated, overwhelmed, or invisible. Over time, this can harden your heart, not because you lack love, but because you gave too much without replenishing yourself. You are allowed to say, "I care about you, but I cannot carry this for you." You are allowed to encourage professional help, to suggest healthier coping mechanisms, and to step back when something is beyond your capacity. This is not abandonment, it is honesty. When you stop carrying someone else's pain, you create space for your own healing. You become more present, more grounded, and more authentic in your support. Your compassion becomes a source of strength rather than depletion. True compassion uplifts without drowning. It supports without suffocating. And most importantly, it honors both the pain of others and the peace of your own heart. Inner peace is not something you find outside of yourself. It is something you allow by releasing what was never yours to carry. One of the greatest obstacles to peace is the habit of constantly managing other people's emotions. Many people live on emotional alert, watching reactions, anticipating moods, and adjusting their behavior to keep everyone calm and satisfied. Over time, this emotional vigilance becomes exhausting, and peace begins to feel out of reach. Managing other people's feelings often starts as a survival skill. You learn to sense tension, to smooth conflicts, to avoid upsetting others, because it once kept you safe or accepted. But what protected you once can imprison you later. When your happiness depends on how others feel, you lose your center. Your emotions become reactive instead of rooted. You are not responsible for preventing disappointment, frustration, or discomfort in others. These emotions are part of being human. When you try to eliminate them for everyone around you, you place an impossible burden on yourself. You begin to believe that if someone is unhappy, you have failed. This belief slowly erodes your self-trust and sense of freedom. Letting go of emotional management does not mean you become careless or insensitive. It means you stop over-functioning in relationships. You stop explaining yourself excessively. You stop reshaping your truth to fit someone else's comfort. You allow people to feel what they feel without rushing to fix it. When you release the need to manage emotions, your nervous system relaxes. You stop walking on emotional eggshells. You speak more honestly. You listen more deeply. You respond instead of react. Peace grows in the space where control once lived. Many people fear that if they stop managing emotions, relationships will fall apart. In reality, the opposite often happens. Healthier dynamics emerge. Conversations become more authentic. People learn to take responsibility for their own emotional responses. And if some relationships do change or fade, it is often because they were built on emotional dependency, rather than mutual respect. Inner peace requires emotional courage. It requires you to tolerate the discomfort of letting others be disappointed or confused. It asks you to trust that you can survive disapproval. This courage strengthens your self-respect and deepens your connection to yourself. When you stop managing everyone else's feelings, you reclaim your energy. You have more space for creativity, rest, and joy. You begin to live from intention rather than obligation. Your life becomes quieter inside, even if the world around you remains noisy. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of clarity. It is knowing where you stand and standing there without apology. It is choosing authenticity over approval and alignment over anxiety. You were never meant to be the emotional caretaker of the world. You were meant to live fully, honestly, and freely. And when you release the responsibility of managing everyone else's feelings, inner peace finally has room to stay. At the heart of this message is a simple but life-changing truth. You are not responsible for carrying the emotional weight of others. You are here to live with honesty, compassion, and integrity, not to shrink yourself to keep everyone comfortable. When you release guilt for setting boundaries, stop measuring your worth by reactions, learn to say no with clarity, offer compassion without self-sacrifice, and let go of managing everyone else's feelings, you return to yourself. This is where healing begins. This is where peace grows. Not in pleasing everyone, but in honoring your truth. When you choose yourself with love, you show others how to take responsibility for their own emotions. And in that space, real connection, real respect, and real freedom finally emerge.